Hello.
Welcome
Hello.
to the welcome to the We Desperately Don't Want to Let Halloween Season Go edition. I am very excited. We are already seeing a bunch of new people in the chat today, and that always makes me incredibly happy. I am sure that is because of my fabulous guests for today. So, introductions, please. Josh, tell us all the things we should know.
Hey, I'm Josh Demansky. I wear many hats. I do some writing. I do a little bit of game design. Do layout for a lot of the liminal horror stuff that you guys will see. Occasional actual play host, though I don't have time for that anymore. So hoping to get back into that. Um, but I am best known as one of the development team behind the liminal horror RPG.
Excellent. How long have you been gaming?
Uh, so for tabletop, it's been like fairly recent is in the grand scheme of my life. um, I grew up in the '90s. I grew up in a Rust Belt town in central New York, where it was still the period where you made fun of nerds and stuff.
Yes, I'm
So
one of the ones that got made fun of.
yeah. Um, so I didn't really start like tabletop gaming until after college. So like I think 2018 was really the first time I had like friends who were into it.
Oh, I
Uh,
feel so old
so
now.
so I started playing around then, and it's been kind of like a increasing obsession ever since that point.
All right. Do you have a favorite game? Other than your own, of course.
So beyond the one that I help manage, I think my favorite tabletop game right now is Orbital Blues out of Soul Muppet Publishing. Uh,
Soul Muppet, I am familiar with, but I am not familiar with that one.
yeah,
It's a really good game.
Yeah, it came out. Man, I don't even know, a few years ago at this point. But I have been trying to run like a little like micro campaign pretty much every year at one point or another. But the idea is that Orbital Blues is basically Cowboy Bebop, the tabletop RPG.
Mm-hmm.
But you play sad space cowboys. Um, it's a simple, it's a little bit of a mix between like OSR and story game, where you got pretty bare bones mechanics, and then they really focus on, being the sad space cowboy
Mm-hmm.
aspect of it. But it always hits hard at my table, and I'm always looking for something new to run and bring to my weekly group that I play with.
Nice. Yeah, I think Inevitable was the one I had heard about
Mm,
before. I have a thing for Western games, especially if they manage not to be comedies. But
yeah.
not that I don't like the comedies. But all right, Scott.
I'm Scott Falzone. I'm the game designer over at Erie Games, so spend most of my time designing games, playtesting games, and all that stuff.
What a great
Um, jo-
life.
uh, Josh just made me feel really old because I started playing in 1983. So I've been role playing for a really, really long time.
This is one of those rare streams where I am not by far the oldest game. You don't have me by much though. You have me by a couple of years.
Well, it's been a while, so you know.
Do you have a favorite game other than
Um,
your own?
Other than my own, my favorite game to either play or run is probably Ten Candles.
Oh God.
Ten Candles is the very first tabletop RPG I ever played in person.
Oh, great introduction because it's
So maybe neither of you should watch my review on it then.
Oh,
oh,
do you not like?
okay.
I
Um,
can see it being divisive. I will note that it's been years, and I still think about that day at least once a week. So
The issue to me is that it doesn't feel like a role playing game. It feels like a theater
fair.
exercise.
I could
As a theater exercise, I think it's awesome. As a role playing game, I think it's depressing as shit.
I could see that, but I
Yep.
don't know. I love playing that game.
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, I mean, I know people who love it. I know people who hate it. I think I refer to it as the avocado of role playing games. You love it or you hate it. There's not a whole lot of in between.
Yeah. but I don't know. Whenever I either run it or play it, it's just so thematic. Especially for a horror game, it tends to pull people in.
Mm-hmm.
Where in some horror games, you could struggle to pull people into the horror
It,
aspects of the game.
it may be too that I am not sure I have ever successfully. Well, no, I take that back. Rarely have I ever successfully run a one shot. Even my one shots end up turning into like 4 year long campaigns.
Well,
So I'm probably not the best suited person for
yeah.
Ten Candles. I have played in. That's the thing though. I tend to run horror. I tend to like to play fun, lighthearted, silly things. All right, let's say hello to our chat. I am already something like 30 messages behind, so this could take a minute depending on how many repeats we have. We start with Legatus, who is one of the mods here and absolutely fabulous at it, and almost always one of the first people in the chat, usually the first. We have Demos, welcome. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if I have ever gotten a hey ho before. I feel like there could be so many jokes there. We have is it Maya or Maya? I'm not quite sure how that gets pronounced. Game Room, welcome. I am pretty sure that you are new here, and I always love having new people here, so I'm very excited about that. And let's see. We have a whole lot of people saying hi to each other. We have Peach Sequence. I love that name, and I also do not recognize you, so an extra special welcome to you. Welcome to the herd. I have the greatest herd ever. Silverlock, who I kind of met via Twitter because we both have a great love of old science fiction books. Eraserhead, who is already starting with the links. Eraser is my other mod, and is quite the mind reader when it comes to I need links. Hanayama-san, we are still celebrating the fact that he once again has a working computer and can actually join us again. We have Peepers, welcome. I'm glad to see you here. I assume this must mean that Jack's stream is done. Welcome to Jacob Ironsides. Jacob is a wonderful friend of the channel. He does great X-Files rundowns. I don't know what the correct grammar is there without looking at it on paper. Rundowns. I think that's what I was going for. So if you're not subscribed to him, you should be, because they're awesome. I love Jacob because he's one of the other people that does positive things on his channel. Okay, pronounced Maia. Okay. That used to be my thought, and then I was like, I'm probably making this entirely too complicated, and I should, simplify it. I have a book that is called Maia. That's the title of the book, and I have never been certain how to pronounce it. So now I know that I was pronouncing it correctly the first time. So that also makes me happy. Okay. All right. So as always, we are going to be chatting kind of in depth about each game. As you have questions, please post them in the chat. I may not get to them until towards the end of each person's spiel, depending on whether or not they fit in the current discussion or not. But please do post them, and I will make sure those get answered. And Scott, if you have questions for Josh and vice versa, please also speak up, despite the fact that whoever's speaking will be blown up on the screen so that they can show us any materials they want to show us up. Okay? All right. Josh, start us off with Liminal Horror.
Liminal Horror is, we call it a rules-light survival horror tabletop RPG, where, I didn't write the original version of Liminal Horror. It was my creative partner, Goblin Archives, who did the first version. I think it was back in 2021. I ended up joining on a little while later. We wrote a couple of modules together, and then we put out the updated Investigators edition of Liminal Horror, and are currently working on the deluxe edition, which will look something like this, which is I've got a early print copy in my hands for those who can't see me for whatever reason.
Is
Um,
it, sorry, I'm going to be the first one to ask a question. Is it your, you appear to be holding it backwards. Is it Japanese style or is it
oh,
just
I'm
my,
mirrored.
okay, just my particular vision then. Okay.
Oh, yeah. No,
It's a
I mirrored my
great, that is a
screen. So
great cover.
yeah, this is the third member of the Liminal Horror team is Zach Hazard Vopen, who is our art director, who did this fantastic cover and did all of the art on the inside too. It's all Zach's. Hold on. All right, let me show something off.
You have fans.
Where is our lovely art?
I try and
Here's a
remember
good
that
one.
I try and remember that the art does not necessarily like make the game, but man, I am a sucker for good art.
Yeah, so Zach has honestly been involved with Liminal Horror longer than me. He did the original cover of the zine version of Liminal Horror before I had joined the team. Uh, and I think that may have been his first like tabletop RPG piece, if I remember correctly, but it was either sometime around then. He's been such a huge part in the identity of Liminal Horror since then, because art is like absolutely fucking fantastic. And I think he's been at least a piece in everything that we've done so far, or for the most part. Maybe there's like one or two things he hasn't, but then we brought him on as our our formal art director, so now he's involved in absolutely everything we do. Um, but getting back into the game itself, we when the first version of Liminal Horror came out, what it was meant to be was this sort of OSR take on cosmic horror, sort of like, a little bit simpler version of something like Call of Cthulhu. But where Call of Cthulhu has this focus on, uh, sanity and the descent into madness, Liminal Horror is taking a little bit of a different approach. There are some unfortunate stereotypes that end up resulting from that look of gamifying sanity. So one of the principal ideas of liminal horror was to create this new system that's called Fallout, where instead of your character, losing their mind or however you want to phrase it over the course of the investigation, you as a character are slowly going to be transformed by the horrors to be just a little bit like them. So a good way to think about it is like a zombie. If a zombie bites you in liminal horror, the infection's going to start taking over your body, and you're going to become a little bit more zombie-like over time until eventually you succumb to the virus and become a zombie yourself. So we ended up, the first version was still kind of focused on that cosmic horror lens of things. And, we didn't really change much of the mechanics, but kind of over the development of the modules, we started to really take a look at it and be like, hey, this isn't really cosmic horror, in the same sense that something, a Lovecraftian might be. It's a little bit more like your Resident Evils or your Silent Hills or something like that in the video game sense, where um, you have this uh, resource management aspect of your character. You have a limited inventory, and over time, that's going to get worse and worse as your character starts getting beat up and taken over by the horrors. Um, so because of that, you know, we thought it was appropriate to start calling it a survival horror game, because that really ends up kind of uh, helping out explain what the core experience is, where um, your characters are investigators. You are, in a sense, investigating a mystery. We're not really super concerned with solving the mystery. The basic idea is that we want the ultimate goal of play is to survive the mystery, and that's very likely to leave a bit of a mess at the end and some lingering questions, which is a pretty good sweet spot that we're aiming for.
I I remember a friend of mine once making a comment about the fact that playing in my games was about surviving the game, not really about solving the mission.
Yep.
So this sounds very much like my kind of game. So Peach Sequence says Fallouts are so fun.
Yeah, they're this interesting thing. We the way that we describe it is that Fallout make you a little stranger and a little stronger. Not all of them are going to be set up in this way, but the idea is like um, Fallout are the only way that your character can mechanically progress in the system. The only way your stats are going to change or you're going to get better, but it comes at a cost. So you might develop like reptilian skin or something like that after interacting with strange creatures out in the forest. That skin might give you a little more armor, might protect you from harm a little bit, but then you have to deal with the fact that you have reptilian skin and all the sort of the narrative consequences that are going to result from that. So it ends up being really the core experience of liminal horror, and it's kind of the heart of how the game plays. It's not the easiest to start getting them at first, but once you start taking Fallout, you just kind of end up in this spiral that you have to kind of very intentionally pull your character out of.
But if you lose all, I assume that's control points.
Yeah, so
You do lose your mind and are lost to the horrors.
yeah. There are three stats in liminal horror. You have strength, dexterity, and control. Strength and dexterity are pretty standard for role playing. Most people know what they are. But control is sort of your character's. It's a little bit intelligent, wisdom, charisma, kind of mashed into one. But it's also, and more importantly, it's their ability to deal with the strange and paranormal. So, as your character takes, we call it stress, stress damage, it's going to start directly targeting their control stat, and that's how you start gaining Fallout. So once you start losing control, you start risking it. You got to make a little bit of a roll to see if you take Fallout or not. But the more you lose control, the more Fallout you're going to start taking. And when your character's control reaches 0, we say that they're lost to the horrors. We leave that kind of vague. It's intentionally very open to kind of let you as a table figure out what that means. So lost to the horrors could be losing your mind. If you want to take the Lovecraftian approach to it, that's a very easy way to kind of phrase it. Like you have been negatively affected by this, and now your character is no longer yours. But being lost to the horrors could also mean death, if that's the simplest thing, if that makes the most narrative sense. Or I like the zombie example too, because being lost to the horrors in the sense of the zombie is your character's becoming the zombie, so you become the horror itself, and then the problems that'll eventually present.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Peepers says, I like any RPG with actual choice or dialogue wheel. I've only played D&D Pathfinder. I assume there was either another one there or Pathfinder just ended up in there twice somehow. Yeah, I do think that there's a lot of feeling that some of the choice has been taken out of D&D these days. Once you choose your class, you kind of have to take a certain path in order to be effective.
Right, and that's one of the reasons why I really like the OSR kind of culture of play. It's a bit of a meaningless term at this point, because no one can even agree what OSR really stands for. But one of the core focuses that in turn becomes a core focus of liminal horror is, player agency, where that's what we want to push a lot. We as designers want to encourage the facilitators to promote choices. So when you're running horror, you put a lot of pressure on your players, force them to make choices, force them to make bad choices because this is horror. But ultimately, we want those players kind of doing those things. And the great part about Fallout is if you want your character to mechanically progress, you have to go interact with the horrors directly. You're not going to gain Fallout by sitting on your couch at home. You got to get out there and go, hit a zombie with a crowbar. So it incentivizes players to engage with the horrors directly in terms of like the mechanical progression that might come from it, but you're also putting yourself at great risk. So that choice is kind of at the heart of it. How do you want to approach these situations, and what's that going to lead to?
You've mentioned zombies a couple of times. Are they just an example, or are they a pretty large part of this?
I just like zombies.
I mean, who
uh,
doesn't, bud?
yeah, but what a zombie represents, I'm using that in sort of a general terminology here, where um, we have set liminal horror in this. We call it an anti-canon setting, but the idea is that we present all of these things and then you can kind of take or leave them rather than being like a correct narrative to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so we set liminal horror, in a version of contemporary times in the Pacific Northwest United States. So that's a little limiting in terms of what you can really do with the system. There's not going to be, goblins and devils running around out in the environment because, this is supposed to be kind of real life. So the horrors are hidden in the shadows and, in the secluded places away from the world. So what that ends up leading to is, in a beneficial way too, where a core focus of the game is often on body horror and how humanity is changed and corrupted. So, in the sense, zombies are a really good example of that, where the monsters were once human and now they're something else. So, a lot of the horrors that you will be experiencing if you play limited horror, it's gonna be, people for the most part, or what was once people that is now this horrible monster.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I did a video on zombies once, and I talked about the fact that one of the reasons that undead are so scary to us is that they are humanity with our humanity removed.
Right. There's the old, I think it's a little memed at this point, but The Walking Dead, the series, the title is referring to the human survivors rather than the walkers themselves.
Oh yeah, because in that everybody will get infected, so they
Yeah.
doesn't matter how they die. Yeah. Um, so just like any other NSR game, I love that there's no lore or knowledge stat, making the players more active in world. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so for the first part, NSR is New School Revolution. It refers to a lot of people have started using it to kind of talk about like the post OSR games, where um, to completely diverge into a tangent here. Uh, you have the OSR that kind of starts in the 2000s as a bit of a response to third edition D&D and kind of the change in the culture there, um, where the original goal of the OSR was to kind of revive these old school systems.
Mm-hmm.
At about the 2009, 2010 point, that goal had largely been achieved. So you get all of these designers who are starting to take the core parts of what they love about these systems that they've just spent, a decade kind of bringing back into the public consciousness and iterating them on, interesting and creative ways. You get Into the Odd is a really good example of this kind of branching path where Into the Odd isn't a retro clone, but it's very much an OSR game. And so we typically call that the post OSR, at least the folks who give a shit about the titles. um, where the New School Revolution comes in is at about 2019-ish. There starts to be this divergent path where folks are being inspired by the OSR and they're not they don't care about the retro clones of the old school games themselves. They're inspired by the community in the OSR that gets passed. So the NSR are these little systems that aren't necessarily retro clones. They're more games with weird settings. That's sort of one of the keys there, where it's not just bog standard fantasy that you're looking at. So you get like your Merkborg, your Cairn, because that's in a dark forest, or like Troika, stuff like that. A lot of folks start branching into this NSR umbrella here. But one of the key aspects of this, again, like we just saw in that comment, Limited Horror doesn't have a knowledge stat. You're not going to be rolling history. The idea that we are trying to work with, and this isn't unique to our game by any means, is that fictional positioning is kind of the way to describe it, or seed to the narrative, or resolve problems through conventional logic before you kind of break out the dice. So in the sense of like finding clues in liminal horror, You're not going to do the D&D 5th edition thing where you walk into the room and make a perception roll to see if you find a clue. We encourage players to directly interact with the environment. And, if you say, oh, I go into the desk and open the drawer and root around to see if I find anything, I don't need a roll to resolve that. If there's a clue there, you find the clue. It's as simple as that. When it comes to things like knowledge, again, that fictional positioning becomes kind of important where we in Limited Horror give characters backgrounds. You'll have things like librarian or cook or baker or what have you. And if it makes sense for the person to have the knowledge, then they just simply do. I don't need to make a roll to see if you have it, where like a librarian would know how to index books, or they would intrinsically know a little bit about like searching databases and stuff like that. So if you're sitting in front of a computer as a librarian and you're trying to, Google search up some monster to see if the origins exist online, I don't need you to make a roll for it. Just if it makes sense in the moment, the character would logically have that sort of ability. They can just kind of do it,
How does that work for things that, like, they might know but might not?
It really just kind of comes down to a discussion at the table. Realistically, we have a couple of ways to solve it. The first is to just reach a consensus with your players, actively engage them. I personally don't particularly care for such a strict divide between the GM and players, though I know that's a little bit of a table culture thing. But we also have introduced, it's not a mechanic that we wrote, it's something we're co-opting from something that's pulled from something. We call it the Die of Fate, where if there is a question that you can't really answer or is kind of, random, we roll the Die of Fate and see the results. In this case, it's a D6. If you roll low, it's good. If you roll high, it's bad. We typically like to use that for things like, is there a pair of scissors in this desk? Like me as a GM, I could make a decision for that, but luck is usually a little bit more fun to kind of rely on. And in this case, does my librarian have this subset of knowledge? It's logical, but it might be variable. Okay, roll the Die of Fate. If you get a low result, there you go, you're good.
Okay, that makes sense. I was thinking things like, librarians tend to also be readers. If you had a skill in religious history, you're probably not going to go know the entirety of all religious history for all religions. So I was just curious how that worked, but sounds like a good method for dealing with it. Let's see. I had a question back up here for you. Patrick says, "I like the risk versus reward. I assume the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward."
Under most circumstances, yeah, you would assume so, but one of the fun things about horror is you might not really know. So if you're going to risk opening that door and finding out what's in the room behind, there might not be any reward, but you have to kind of weigh the choice.
That's a little bit more realistic than necessarily. I mean, other than the fact that if you never take a risk, there's definitely no reward.
Right. And taking risks is part of like the social contract of playing horror games. Like you're here to do that, so go open that door.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of even in D&D, you get the social contract that you're going on this particular adventure, but every so often you'll get a party that's like, nope, we're gonna go over here instead.
Yeah, so the most sensible thing in any horror scenario is gonna be to run away. We don't play characters who run away.
You play movie horror characters, right, who always go investigate the weird sound. What kind of dice system does it run on?
So Limited Horror uses your standard polyhedral dice. It is primarily a D20 based game, but in this case it's D20 roll under, so you'll have your strength, dex, and control. Whenever you were trying to do something difficult or dangerous, or the result of failure would be interesting, you roll your dice, you're looking for equal or under your current score. And like I mentioned earlier, there are ways in which your ability scores are going to start getting taken away as you interact with the monsters. So things will become more challenging the deeper you get into the horror itself.
Okay.
But beyond that, every other dice is kind of used in good measure. If you're just like fist fighting someone, you're going to be rolling d4 for damage. Most weapons are d6, and then it kind of scales up from there. So you get a fair use out of your full set of polyhedrals.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. There's is it Numenera that everything is either D4, D6, or D8 or something like that? They're
Yeah,
all
yeah, you've
they're
got
all
a
light, medium, or heavy weapons.
um, Numenera is almost entirely d20, and then, like you said, yeah, your light, medium, and heavy weapons deal standardized damage, so you're never rolling for that beyond the 2-hit roll.
Are there classes in this game, or is it
Nope.
sheerly skill based? Or
So, you as a character have basically 4 things: your strength, dex, and control, and your hit protection. Your hit protection is your character's ability to avoid serious harm. It's HP. It's just a little bit frame different, so it's not quite meat points in this. It's more of like stamina and luck is kind of the way to think about HP in liminal horror. And then your character, at a base level, you get a background. Your background is really just kind of a narrative framing. It will typically give you like a career or something that is important to your characters. Like you might be a plumber as a background, or I think we have one that's terminally online where the person might have a different job, but the most important part of the character is the fact that they're constantly online.
oh, Eraser, you're in this game.
And so that sort of sets up the narrative framing and gives you a little bit of context, but that's kind of it. It's classless in the sense that the things that are important to your character are what they carry with them and what happens to them. So this is where we kind of talk about the survival horror nature of it, where you're just everyday folk kind of running out there investigating the horrors. So who you are in relation to the game is more about what you're kind of carrying with you and how you can leverage your background to aid you in these troubles. We have also started doing these things that we call archetypes, where archetypes are kind of extended backgrounds. They're as close as you're going to get to a class in liminal horror, at least at a base level. And all that really is we give you a title and we give you like 2 sentences of narrative lead in, and like that's it. That's going to be your character. So one of the ones I remember off the top of my head is The Final Girl, where you play a character who has survived some previous horror, and now they're getting thrown back into that against their will. So that sort of affects how you as a player are going to start kind of approaching the situation here, because you're role playing a character who has already done this, and now you're back in it again.
So that's how they know they're going to be the first one to die, then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because the one who survives the previous game is the one that dies first in the sequel. It's like a rule. Except in very rare cases. Other things you think that we should know?
Well,
I mean, I have seen your website. There is so much support for and supplemental material for this game.
So, one of the big things that we've been trying to do is, we're not really trying to change the system in any tangible way here. We've added a few things over the years, but the core is going to be the same. But we really want folk to play horror at the table. That's one of the things where you could love all these games, but getting into the table is a challenge. So that's been the big focus of us as a development team through our modules, through our Discord server, through our outreach to community, trying to get games going and stuff like that. Again, we want people to play the horror and not just, owning it is fun, but this is a tabletop game. We got to play it. So we've written a bunch of modules. We've done community game jams over on itch.io to kind of get folk to start making their own stuff. And then, we're doing the big book, which I'll talk about in a second here. But in terms of official modules, you can go to the Liminal Horror website. It's liminalhorrorrpg.com. We also have the Liminal Horror Library, which you can find through the website. And the Liminal Horror Library it's a catalog of everything from the official supplements and modules that we've written to the third party stuff that's been put out there. I think we started even cataloging like actual plays and stuff. We have just reached over 300 entries for the Liminal Horror Library. So if you're just getting into horror, especially liminal horror, there's a whole ton of stuff that's going to be ready, and waiting for you there. In terms of our modules, we have 4 main ones, and we've done a couple smaller ones that I won't bother talking about right now. But we've done the Mall, which is an any winning module. I don't have that sitting next to me at the moment, but we took home one of the awards for at the Ennies this past year for the Mall. We did a little bit of a revamp for it. That's why I got brought up into it. But last year we had the Bloom was nominated for an Ennie. It did not win it, but it got the little bit of recognition that was there. This is more of like a sandbox kind of slow burn investigative mystery. We've done one hardcover, which is the Parthenogenesis of Hungry Hollow, which you can blame me for the name that no one can ever say. This is it's about 120 pages. Another slow burn investigation. You're looking at like 10 to 12 sessions, under a normal play group here. But you're kind of going into a town to find some weird horror that's going on. It's a little gross. It's not for everyone, and we're kind of fully admitted that. So check out the content warnings if you're going to go dive into that one. And then I think the one that we, at one point, were best known for, but I think the Mall can beat it out, is the Bureau. The Bureau is basically a dungeon crawl through this labyrinthian headquarters of a paranormal government investigative agency. So this is real, OSR horror type of stuff here. You're kind of stuck in this building and you're trying to figure out how to get around it. There's a bunch of weird shit kind of going on there. And then the thing that we're working on right now, one of the things, because we've got a billion kind of things going on at the moment, but I showed it before, but we're working on the Liminal Horror Deluxe Edition. This is not a finished book. This is just a print proof that we were doing to kind of get an idea of what's going on there. So we're still kind of getting that done. We did a crowdfunder for it on BackerKit earlier this year, and we're trying to get it in production by the end of the year. And hopefully we're pretty close. We got about 75% of the book in initial layout, and then we got to do some more design passes after that. But hopefully by the end of the month, we'll have something that we can kind of start showing to folks. But if you missed the initial funding period, keep your eyes peeled. We're hoping to get the PDFs out, for the public sometime this year, but the physical version you'll probably be able to buy early next year for the big book.
Sweet. I love physical media. Peach Sequence says, is there any hints for future adventures or modules? I don't know if that is it seems like with a project that big going on that probably there's not a whole lot of other
Oh.
Ooh.
In the Liminal Horror Deluxe Edition, there's going to be 3 scenarios. We have Silent Street Station, Camp Coldwater, and Cult Classic. Silent Street Station is like a 6-pager. It's like a one night of fun type of thing. I wrote it to playtest some stuff, and we just included it in the book. Camp Coldwater was supposed to be our starting scenario back when we initially conceived the book. But that's a little so Camp Coldwater is actually a prequel to the Bloom, where you as players play the event that precedes the Bloom that kind of kicks off the whole investigation. And then Cult Classic is a full module that we are putting directly in our hardcover book, where it's like 40-ish pages here. It's going to be, it's not a billion sessions. It's probably closer to like 3 to 5 sessions, maybe. You could probably one-shot it if you really want to rush. But that's going to be, if instead of a zine, we put that in there directly. And then we have written a starter scenario, like a proper starter scenario for Liminal Horror. We've shared it with some folk, so they've kind of seen an early draft of it. But that it's called Einfühlung. It's a German word, and I couldn't find anything better to title it, so we stuck with that. But it is the Liminal Horror starter scenario. That is almost done. We'll have that full version out to backers soon, and then we'll be able to release the digital version for normal folk to go purchase. And then to kind of talk about what we're doing in the future. Uh, we're tossing around a couple of ideas. The one that we have publicly talked about is we're calling it Brookhaven, but there was a better term for it. Um, I think it was like the Beasts of Brookhaven or something like that. But what we wanted to do as a follow up for the deluxe edition is a new take on the bestiary, where we are trying to cram in a bunch of new unique creatures, a bunch of adventures to go with those creatures directly, and then like a campaign framework to kind of tie it all together around this fictional city of Brookhaven. I don't know if that'll be our next project. We've done some kind of spec work on it, but it's going to take a little bit to kind of get to market. Um, there is something else that we're working on that's a little bit smaller scope that I think a lot of people are going to be excited about, but I don't think we've talked about it yet. So something is on the horizon.
Oh, I thought there was going to be more to that sentence. There was another question. I think you've probably already kind of answered it. What is your favorite supplement or adventure?
For Liminal Horror,
Yes.
I think it's the Bloom. This was the second thing that Goblin Archives and I kind of collaborated on together. Uh, we ended up doing the bureau in about 3 months. I think the total development time once we finally got into it, which was a pace that we haven't been able to kind of replicate since then. um, but once we had finished the bureau, we were kind of like, "Hey, I got an idea. You want to do another module?" And that's when I kind of became, actually an official part of the Liminal Horror team. And then we spent about the next year working on the Bloom. Um, the Bloom, uh, I like this one a lot because it's kind of a personal in a sense, where um, the module itself is set in a fictional town of Coldwater, Washington, where um, I had just kind of moved to the Pacific Northwest during the process of writing the bureau. And so we had gotten into this as when, my kind of experience moving here and kind of getting to see the environment firsthand, where the horror itself is very much based in the Pacific Northwest. It's, the initial idea, the conception point is something that is real. There's this doesn't get into spoilers because it's a real thing, but they call it the humongous fungus, where the single largest living organism on planet Earth is one continuous piece of fungus that is beneath a forest in northern Oregon, where it's like um, miles, like a couple of square miles of just fungus that's buried underground. That weighs like all these thousands and thousands of pounds, and so that thing kind of spawned into existence. The horror that eventually comes in the Bloom. But the town of Coldwater itself is based on Old Forge, New York, which is a place I used to spend some time when I was a child. So kind of taking these things and smashing them together, these somewhat personal things for me, and then building a horror adventure around it, ended up being really fun. But um, I think we've done a lot of really good work since the Bloom has come out. But this feels like a high point for me because I feel like I really nailed this.
If somebody wanted to start this game, but there's a lot there. Um, what what is the minimum price wise, book wise, whatever that they would need to get started with this game
Oh
to
god,
find out if it's their thing?
$0. We have
Well then.
um, so you can go right now to limitedhorrorrpg.com. On the website itself, all the rules of the game are up there. We have started also adding some stuff from the deluxe edition onto the website as well. So if you are somebody looking to run horror, there's going to be a little bit of advice there. We didn't want to put everything because we know we want to incentivize people to buy the book. But if you want to start doing it, you can do it immediately. Just go to the website, grab that and have fun. Beyond the actual like rules of the game, we have started kind of pumping out ways that you can kind of get into actual adventures and stuff a little bit cheaper. Um, there's some trying to remember what we have free and what we don't have free at the moment. There's a couple of very cheap things you can get kind of digitally there. I think they're only a couple of bucks at a minimum. We are currently kind of putting together a completely free, one shot scenario for folks. and that'll be out in a couple of weeks here. So if you don't have anything that you're kind of immediately wanting to run, you will have something that's kind of sitting there and waiting for you. And then we're also working on that starter scenario that I talked about. That has the zine itself has a condensed version of the rules. It has a fully playable scenario. It has pre-generated characters. So like that's your minimum price point for everything. It's it's going to be like $10 physical or $12. I don't remember where we set the price. I think we're doing 5 digital, but that's not really my department, so don't quote me on that. So as an all-in-one package, just one thing that you can get that'll be enough for 1 to 3 nights of fun. You'll have that starter scenario within the next couple of weeks. That'll be kind of ready for you.
So is the core book available currently in
Yep.
physical form, or is that the thing you're putting out?
Yeah. So Limited Horror has existed physically for 4 years, give or take. We have the zine versions that are out, and I wish I had a copy on me at the moment, but there's the Limited Horror Investigators Edition, what we're calling it. You can buy that physically right now through Space Penguin Inc., who is the publisher for everything Limited Horror these days. That's going to run, I think it's like $15, give or take, for the physical version, but all of that is free if you want to do digital only, either the PDF of the book itself or the information on the Limited Horror website. You can kind of go in there. You don't have to pay for that. But if you do want that physical copy, you can get that zine. And the thing here, too, is the Investigators Edition is not going away. We have written this, I think it's going to be close to 450 pages by the time we're done with this book here. That is the nice deluxe version. That's why we're calling it the Deluxe Edition. The Investigators Edition is your base level. We want to keep that zine version live. So if you don't want to buy the big, $50, $60 book, you can just get that little zine, and that's going to be good. We didn't change the rules. We're just simply kind of adding things with the big book to make it easier for you to get your horror to the table.
It's like dice, though. It's such a pretty book. Looks
Yes,
great.
please do buy the book. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to. That's kind of the key there.
So I think we've had a bunch of people who came in since you held it up. Can you give the fans an extra?
Yeah, I'm mirrored. This isn't final either. Like I said, this was just a print proof, so we could look at like colors and stuff, and a little bit of like how the art would come out. There's a couple of art pieces that we're putting in it. We got a
Nice.
little look at some of the layout. This isn't final either, but it's going to be kind of easy to read. We didn't want to fill it with shit. We wanted to make it so it was a quick, nice reference book that you can kind of flip through and find what you need.
All right, I have one more question from the chat, and then I have a question for you. And then we should probably give Scott a chance to talk, unless Scott also has a question. Chat question. I'm a new creator getting into dark fantasy and horror space. Browsing your website, it seems like you're pretty established. It looks great. How do you find your people? I get this question all the time, and I'm like, all I do is edit. I have no idea.
I do not have a good answer for that, unfortunately. I exist in a very unique position where a lot of the folk that I continue to collaborate with and kind of built my, if I call it a career, my RPG career out of, I met pretty much on Twitter before it was bought by Elon Musk. And before the mass exodus of tabletop RPG players away from that platform. So I did it through these online spaces there where, again, a lot of these interactions were happening there, and then we would move into Discord servers, and then I would kind of interact with these folks on there. So it's kind of like I kind of stumbled into a lot of these existing friendships and working relationships that I have with a lot of folk. Again, these days it's kind of like shit. You got to go find a Discord server and then start interacting. Maybe.
So a lot of word of mouth and meeting people, not actively posting jobs and...
Yeah, and that was kind of the thing where I came into this as a hobbyist and then kind of became, a writer and designer afterwards. And so everything that I do is kind of based on that initial bit of friendship more so than hire me, please.
Yeah, I have to say I would be a little nervous about somebody who'd never played a role-playing game suddenly showing up and being like, hey, I want to do social media or design work or...
Yeah.
I'd be a lot nervous.
Yeah, it's whoops, there we go. It's like I was saying with the editing thing, what I found out was that people were having a hard time finding editors who also understood how role playing rules worked. So, so my final question, considering that this is a big deal with with horror games these days, is that what's the stance on safety rules?
Oh, absolutely encouraged. So uh, we're not here to tell people how to run games. If you don't want to use safety rules, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to, make a stance and say you have to do it. We do include them in the Liminal Horror book in the deluxe edition. I don't think the Investigator edition mentions them directly, but it's been a little bit since I've looked through that. But the idea is in a general sense on our design team. Again, we want you to get your horror to the table, but we want to make sure that you are also having fun doing it. It's fun to feel scared. It's fun to feel tension within a controlled environment. And in order to do that, you kind of have to take care to make sure that it is a, controlled environment in some ways. Sometimes that's just having it be all of your friends. What kind of, happens with your friends, the stuff that they like. That is sort of like an implicit safety tool in and of itself, where you're already kind of familiar with these folks and you can kind of, move and gauge your material around their comfort. But me as a game master first, I never want to make my players uncomfortable in an unfun way. And so we wouldn't want to do that with liminal horror in general. There, again, we do a lot of like gross stuff when it comes to our product. When you get into horror, you get into body horror. That's kind of the point. You want to do a little bit of gross things here and there. But we, in the past, we've worked with a sensitivity consultant to make sure that we weren't going a little too far in one of our modules. We always put content warnings out, and that's kind of an implicit safety tool that we've built in and of itself. And again, it's, we have a pretty robust control over our Discord server to make sure that folks aren't being, the bad kind of weirdo in that space. But again, we heavily encourage the use, but we're not going to like force you to do it at your table.
Makes sense. The point about friends is kind of important too. I am somewhat notorious for saying I loathe safety tools. Because as far as I'm concerned, the whole point of horror is to be uncomfortable.
Right.
But you're right.
One of the things too, that if you're using safety tools, how hard you can push it.
See, my issue is that it's not how hard I will push it. If somebody says I really hate spiders, then I will tell them, okay, fine, I won't include spiders, but I'm not going to tell you the rest of the party won't include spiders.
Right.
But there's also a point where you want to include the horror and you want to terrify people, but where the safety tools come in is you don't want to traumatize people.
Exactly.
And there is a very fine line there, because I've had people sit down at my table and I've gone through safety tools and they said, I don't have any. And then I looked over at them later and they were kind of like and I'm like, well, maybe you should come up with some.
See, my perspective would be that means you ran an excellent game.
Like,
yeah.
All right.
You want to scare them, not traumatize them. So yeah.
All right. Does anyone else from the chat have questions? Scott, do you have questions for Josh?
Well, the only question I really have goes back to something you said much earlier, and it's from a mechanical standpoint. You said a lot of what the players bring with them. Do they just sit down and jot that out, or how does that kind of sort out?
So when you start a game of liminal horror, if you are building characters the way that we have written it in the book, you're going to start with 3 to 5 things on your character. So you have the background in sort of the narrative sense. You're going to bring with you your experiences from your character's background that aren't literal items, and then you'll have your plumber. You're going to have your toolkit, your wrench, your box or whatever, or something like that. We'll give you a few things. So you start with a few things in your inventory, and then everything else, go find it in the environment. Go pick up the axe from that cabin in the woods. Grab the strange chemicals from the scientists and figure out what they do later. That type of stuff. But those things that you choose to bring with you are going to potentially be the things that save your life, so they become very important.
She's gonna pay for me to go back to. Yeah, it's interesting. I was actually just typing a note related to this here, but it ended up being longer than than the comment, I think. I have run horror games for 20 years. I don't think it ever even occurred to me to include medical torture. Um, Now I may have to think about that, but that's not usually the kind of game I run. Um, I like, well, actually, I do. I don't like slasher. I don't like slasher horror. I don't really consider that. I consider it gross, not horror. And I guess I just consider, like, medical torture stuff to be more slasher than actual horror thing.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the things where in my home group we use lines and veils as our primary safety tool here, where there's a server wide veil on torture kind of in general. Um, it's not something that I'm afraid to have featured in the games itself. It's just I don't really feel like role playing a torture sequence because that's not interesting to me. I don't think that's it's gross in a sense and it could be potentially traumatizing, but um, I don't get joy out of that type of interaction or description personally. So it's not really something that I'm jonesing for to run headfirst into when it comes to writing horror either.
yeah, I like the slow, creepy mess with your mind horror. I just, like I said, I don't really tend to even think of slasher horror as horror.
I think where you could kind of get the torture aspect to, because again, I have no desire to role play out a torture scene. To me, that's just not really anything where I really want to touch on. But like having that something that happens, off screen or off stage that people hear about, that's one way that you could kind of bring in some horror from something like that without having to go, play by play running through the entire gruesome affair.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion. I actually am going to be doing a topic panel next month after. I can't remember without looking. On entitled "The Anatomy of Horror," talking about the different types of horror and what makes good horror, what makes enjoyable horror as opposed to just gross or boring or. All right, Scott, you have been
Yeah.
waiting very patiently.
So, I'm here to talk about. Well, Erie
I
Games has. What was that?
I have a super important question before you start.
Yes.
You have a small furry thing behind you.
There's four small fur. Well, I don't know about small. There's four dogs in the house.
I just had to know if it was a cat or a very small dog. Okay.
No, they're
My
all.
my
That's. Oh, hold on a second. That's the smallest dog in the house. She's like 45 pounds, I think. Oh yeah. So the rest of them, I think, are sleeping downstairs.
my she's the size of my large dog's head.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. My curiosity is assuaged.
oh, that's good. So, Erie Games has, I think, six horror games. Well, not horror, six role-playing games out. The majority of which are horror. Our newest full role-playing game, which is I'm talking about today, is Once Upon an Effing Time. Um, this is kind of what I would refer to as. Well, this has heavy body horror in it, but it's also what I would consider whimsical horror.
That is
So in this
also a great
game,
book.
thank you. So in this game, you play adults who have managed to get yourselves trapped in fairyland, and you need to get out really soon because one, you're slowly like losing your memories of who you are, and two, you're slowly transforming into a porcelain doll, and that's where the heavy body horror body horror comes out to it. So the crux of the game, and this could easily be played as a one shot or it could be played as a campaign, is you're trying to get out of fairyland. So there's two things that are really involved in here. One, you have to find the door. Where is it located, which you have no idea. And two, you have to find the key for said door. And all along the way are all the crazy things in fairyland, especially the fae, trying to keep you there. And I kind of like refer to the fairyland in this game setting as whimsical horror. So as you're trying to get out, you're slowly transforming, you're slowly forgetting who you are, and it's kind of the while it's very whimsical because you're in fairyland and you're going against some horrifying but kind of goofy things at times, you're also forgetting who you are and transforming away from what you were into something just downright creepy and very un having all your humanity stripped away. Um, Once Upon an Effing Time, again, that's the rules. Go back over. Is a diceless system. All you need for this is a deck. It's a regular deck of cards that you modify by taking everything above an 8 out of it and leaving the two jokers in. And it's a very simple system that relies upon kind of like the matching game when we were kids, having to find the matches. So how you succeed is by finding those matches by getting pairs. And that's how you succeed when you're trying to do something. So that's kind of the resolution system. Um, so let me show you.
How do you lay the cards out to find matches?
Well, I'm going to show you that at once. So this is the character sheet. You have four. Right there. You have four attributes: wonder, cleverness, bravery, and self. Depending on what you're doing, it's going to involve one of those things. So from the modified deck of cards, you draw the number of cards equal to the attribute of what you're trying to do. And if you have a pair, three of a kind, or four of a kind, you're successful. If not, you fail. Now, where this gets very collaborative and really, I think, helps pull people in is based on, how well you describe what you're doing and how creative you get. The gamekeeper is going to let you draw extra cards. The caretaker. Oh, thank
Now,
you.
Your character sheet is a hit.
Thanks.
Do you have like a, for lack of a better term, like a module that's kind of built into the rules itself, or is it just sort of like something that emerges through play as you're pulling cards?
Well, we have 8 locations detailed in here. And you can run a lot of different adventures. They don't have to just be, getting out. But it's basically, hold on one second. All of those locations are detailed in the rulebook.
Nice.
And so you kind of go from location, dealing with Fae, which is dangerous unto itself. But you need to find both the exit and the key. So you have to interact with the Fae and the other creatures within Fairyland to achieve both of those things. And it also involves going to all the different locations and interacting. So like a one-shot could literally just be like pick one location with one very specific thing and just kind of run through that. Where a campaign is going to be more about basically exploring all of Fairyland and trying to find those things.
I'm delighted to see a game where the Fae are treated with proper horror and respect.
Oh, they're. So there's a whole bestiary in the back. That's the Fairy Queen's court. The Fairy Queen's in here. So you kind of run into these and you interact with these, like, talk. So there's a lot of material in the game to kind of run through and, a lot of different ways of approaching it.
Are the fairy sort of like Shakespeare's fairy, or the really dark, legendary, back in the day fairy?
I think they're more kind of like a mix of that. So there's very much a lot of the more darker legendary fairies, but from the Shakespearean side of the fence, there's a lot of deal making and the letter of the law and all that stuff in here. So, you kind of have both ends. Like some things are going to be really silly. Like you could literally be fighting a porcelain doll. And this goes back to the whole thing about zombies, because at one point that was human, and it didn't make it out of Fairyland. And then hold on one second. I'm trying to find some of the real.
You have a request to show the Queen.
That's Mother Maggot. Ooh, there's the fairy queen. Um,
Big sword and
so
all. Woohoo!
so yeah, it's just a lot of yeah. It's just basically making your way through fairyland, trying to cling on to your humanity, both mentally and physically, and dealing with some pretty horrific things.
This is more of like a little bit of an aside, but have you read Wonderland from Andrew Kolb yet?
No,
So Andrew
could you?
Kolb,
Yeah,
yeah, Andrew Kolb, he technically designs for fifth edition D&D, but that's a little bit more of like an
oh,
advertising.
did he do the Neverland book?
There you go. Yeah. So
I have the Neverland book. Yes.
yeah. So Andrew Kolb has done Neverland, Oz, and Wonderland is the most recent one.
Mm.
This is more just like a general recommendation. If you haven't read it, like this book fucking rocks. So you'd probably like it.
No, I'll pick that because I really like the Neverland book. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I didn't even know that came out.
I think it was last year, but the publisher I think shuttered their tabletop department, so they're not great at advertising. I kind of
Oh,
found out it came out on accident.
that's a shame.
You know.
Because again, I thought the Neverland thing was very well done.
Yeah, yeah, they're all great books.
So
You have a couple of questions from the chat. How intense are the rules?
this is a very rules light game. This game you could pick up and be playing within minutes because again, it's really just the whole matching system. You know, I really am more focused like on the role playing and get people in there and acting. I try it. Eerie games as general, our games try to avoid anything that's too heavy because for some games it absolutely works, but for a lot of games I find the heavier the rules get, the more the rules get in the way of being able to play.
And the other question, what are your primary inspirations for this scenario slash game?
Um, well, there's a lot. So I consume a lot of media. I read a lot. Um, I'm an English literature major. That's what I went to school for. So I read a lot of classic horror, a lot of gothic horror, and just yeah, lots of media. I love horror movies, horror books. So what will usually happen when I'm coming up for inspiration, whether it's a whole game or it's like a simple adventure, I'll see like one thing, whether I'm reading it or viewing a movie or even watching a YouTube video, I'll see one aspect of that and I'm like, hey, that would be cool as this. And then I'll usually take that one aspect and kind of blow it up and see how it kind of evolves from there.
I just want to answer Peach Sequence's other question. I really want to hear about Eerie Games Fatebound if it's allowed. I've never heard of
Ah,
it before, but it looks cool.
um,
I'd like to finish this, but if we have time,
mhm,
when we hit the end, then absolutely. And if not, maybe we can have you back for a chat on that at some point.
absolutely. Would love to talk about it.
Um, Zero Theory says, "Is this Night of the
Oh,
Epic book covers? They've all been." I'm not sure I understand the question, but
I think they mean
Uh,
both this and the liminal horror book look really cool. I think that's what they're saying.
okay. I thought I was trying to mentally add in some capitalizations there.
Mhm.
There,
Yeah.
but yes, those have been some. Those have been some very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I was
Like I said,
when
I try not to get too caught up in the art, but
hmm. You know, when I got this book back from the artist, and like when they started sending me stuff, I was like, oh yeah, they know exactly what they just did such a beautiful job capturing the spirit of the game and the artwork.
can I ask who your publisher is?
We self-publish. We publish all of
Yourself?
this.
Ooh, nice.
So,
Um, the last time I got really excited about a book cover, somebody sent me a book to run at a convention for them,
Hmm.
and they had gotten it through Lulu, I think, and it had
Yeah.
this. I'm very texture driven,
Hmm.
and it had this like almost fuzzy feel to the book. Yeah, that got me so much more than the art does. Even. It's like this is so
Hmm.
cool. I just want to handle it. I had to give it
Yeah.
away at the end of the convention thing, and I really didn't want to.
Yeah. Lulu does good stuff, but it's cost prohibitive to mass publish from them.
Oh yeah. The people I know who usually tend to use it are people who are like from other parts of the world,
Hmm.
because then they don't have to deal with the trying to ship across the seas and things like that.
Yeah,
So,
because yeah, it gets very time intensive.
um, Eraser, have we gotten the Discord link? I've seen lots of social media links, but I want to make sure that I didn't, because somebody mentioned that your Discord is really active in case you didn't have time to talk about.
Oh,
Um,
our Discord is very active.
all right.
I could get a link to throw in there later.
I assume Eraser is probably already on it because he's really good at that. He may already have. I may have just missed it completely because I've been trying to shuffle all the questions.
Hmm.
Um, any planned supplements or
Um,
additions for this in the
yes.
future?
So we have um two adventures and a supplement coming up for the game. Um,
Nice.
the supplement takes the Fairyland theme and brings it underwater.
Ooh, so like mermaid themed.
Correct. Yeah. So that'll actually that should be out. I want to say January, maybe February. It's hard to give exact dates because getting the stuff printed takes forever. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then we have two more full adventures for this coming out. One of them basically involves exiting Fairyland, and this is only like one way to kind of exit Fairyland, but it kind of brings the adventure underneath Fairyland. Um,
Interesting.
and then the other adventure is all about the Queen's Court and interacting with her court and her and playing through the games and whatnot.
That one sounds like it might be the most terrifying of the bunch.
Well, yeah. And we have friends who do a streaming channel, Mythic Family. They actually made up their own adventure for this, and it was kind of like Once Upon an Effing Time Squid Games. It was pretty cool.
Oh, somebody mentioned that earlier in the chat, but
Yeah,
they couldn't remember who it was. So excellent.
yeah, it was
Now we
Mythic
have
Family.
now we have that piece of information.
Yeah, and if you come to our Twitch, we stream all of our games, so you could see all the different games being played and get ideas on how to play them and whatnot.
So if you ran one of those sections in a one shot, about how long do you think it would take?
4 hours.
Takes about 4 hours. So good convention
Uh,
game then.
well, that's yeah. So I run a lot at conventions. This is our dead period because it's November and December, but the rest of the year we're at 2 to 3 conventions a month, and I'm running games. And I like Origins and Gen Con because I bring people to run the games, so I don't have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But at smaller cons, that's not practical. So I'm kind of running. At most cons, I'm running 4 to 5 games, and at a con, you have 4 hours. They're very serious, like 4 hours.
Yeah, I recently got back into running at conventions because there are a lot of
Mm,
very small indie games out there that I really
mm,
enjoy, but they
mm,
don't have the capability to go to conventions at all. So I try really hard to take their stuff to
mm,
anything I can reasonably reach in a day's drive, and
mm.
I run a lot for the course of a weekend. It gets a little exhausting, but
Oh, it's
it's also a lot of
exhausting.
fun. It's also a lot of fun. So
And while you're besides running games, of course, I'm trying to squeeze in playing all these indie games that I love. So it's like, yeah, usually I'm pretty wiped at the end of almost any con. You know.
yeah, I was really hoping to go to Page in January.
Oh, I'll be
Um,
there. I'll be at Page. We're running.
Yeah, there were all these cool people I wanted to meet at Page, and I can't make it.
I believe we're running 12 games at Page.
Man, I was gonna do. What was I doing? I think I was doing 12 over 3 days, and then Sunday I was gonna save for, like, actually going around and saying hello to everyone. All the
Yeah.
people I have met online and couldn't meet in person.
Hmm.
But,
Yeah.
oh well. Maybe next year.
Yeah. Page was. I went to Page for the first time last year. It was a great con.
Yeah, the travel was an issue because there's no easy way to get from the airport to the convention, which would have meant I had to drive, which is 14 hours, and the only working vehicle we have right now is a farm truck that gets 10 miles to the gallon. So
That would not have been practical.
that would not have worked. So,
Yeah.
yes,
The fir-
lots of games. Do you run the same scenario a bunch, or do you,
no.
like,
So I will. I try to cap running the same scenario at like twice, just so if somebody wants to play the game twice, they're not like locked into playing the same scenario over again. Plus, I
mm-hmm.
like to give people options. So yeah, I usually try to limit a scenario to twice at a con. And it depends because it also depends on size of the con because like well Page I'm running 12 games, but like at a normal con I'd probably be running. Well, I'm not personally running 12 a con, but 12 are running. Whereas at a smaller con, it's probably just me and I'm running four. But like at Origins, I think we ran 32 games. So it really depends on the size of the con and who I could bring with me.
32 games?
Did you guys make it out to Rose City Comic Con this year?
Which one?
Rose
Rose
City?
City?
Yeah, it would have been out
No.
of Portland.
Yeah, no.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I've been to this year, and I wasn't there long enough to see really much of anything, so it would have been kind
Yeah.
of funny to pass for like ships in the night.
I would. And like Gen Con, getting out of your booth is almost impossible. There's so many people there, so I don't think I really left my booth at Gen Con. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
no, we do a lot of cons because like we going back all the way to the beginning. A lot of it is just getting exposure to the games. It's hard, So the cons are a great way to do it. It's also a great way to meet people, build a base, also make connections, and it's just yeah. So we do a lot of them.
Drove 12 hours to Gen Con, do not recommend. I can't, I hate driving, so driving 12 hours anywhere would,
I I drove 22 hours to BGG Con in
the,
Dallas.
the issue
Big-
is that I live in central Maine, and
Mhm.
central Maine is 3 hours just to get out of the state.
Mhm.
Um, but we do have PortCon, which is kind of a little bit of everything convention, but for a small state, it gets quite a lot of people. Um, I think it's somewhere in the range of 3,500, which is actually bigger than Page.
Yeah, that's a
Um,
good number.
like, they had to top it out at 3,500 because they outgrew the hotel that they were holding it in, and they've now moved to a new location this coming year.
Hmm.
Um, so it's not a huge con, but it's enough that somebody who's got a brand new game out and isn't terribly um, established to, get a good audience.
Well, yeah, word of mouth. I mean, I got to tell you, it's also like you could play test your games there. It's just good. Oh, you should go to a con. I highly recommend it. They're everywhere, and some of them are really small.
Yeah, I agree with Pennington. Try a small local one at first because
Mm-hmm.
some of the larger ones can be very overwhelming.
Hmm.
Honestly, I've gotten to the point where, like, if there's a large con that my husband wants to go to, I get him 2 tickets and I send him with his best friend. I'm like, I'm going to stay home and take care of the goats.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yes, PortCon has been building for quite a while.
I might have to look
Uh,
into that. We're always looking at for cons, so more cons. So
yeah, I do that. There's one in northern Maine I'll probably hit this year. There's one in Vermont. There's one in New Hampshire. There are several in Massachusetts, and all of those are easily a day's drive for me. So
Oh, yeah. We're doing in Massachusetts. We're doing again. We've done it. This is our third time at TotalCon.
I have looked at TotalCon several times. I People love playing. I have never been able to find out whether or not it was worth going to run.
Um, we usually do pretty well there, running games and the table and whatnot. So,
Good. That's good
uh,
information to have. Like I said, I've only ever known people who went to play, and um, on paper it looks sometimes like they might be difficult to get in with. So, do you have a T-shirt with your logo on it?
oh me, yes. uh,
He's got all the marketing. He's got T-shirts. He's got cool covers on his books, and he's got a dog in the background.
well, because of the cons, I own a lot of Erie Games T-shirts because of the cons. Because
Yes, that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah,
All
we
right,
made
what else?
t-shirts for Liminal Horror and have never recovered from the red for those. So,
Oh, we don't even sell ours. This is just the staff.
oh,
It's
nice.
just yeah. It's just like so many.
I have to be honest, Josh. I have looked at your T-shirts, and I love the color patterns. But not only is my hearing not great, my eyesight is not great, and I have a really hard time with the font that you
Oh
use.
yeah,
I
there was a
can't read the word liminal at all.
there was a damn, I don't even remember who did it at this point. Um, we had somebody do like a heavy metal logo for Liminal Horror on one of our t-shirts. It looks super cool, but again, if you've ever seen a heavy metal album, you can't read the name of the band, so you're not reading the name of
Yeah.
the system either.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
I think probably for some people that's almost part of the part of the
well,
attraction.
yeah, yeah.
Trying to find where I saw the T-shirts on here, but now I can't find them.
Yeah. On the back of all our shirts are the various book covers for our games, so it's advertising as you're walking around a con.
Yes, very much. Other questions from Josh or the chat? If not, I think we probably have a little bit of time if you wanted to cover that other game for 10 or 15 minutes.
Sure.
Uh,
So
Nothing from me immediately. I think I got out my big one so far.
so Fatebound is a game where you play young witches attending a dark military academy. So you're playing. If you start out as beginning level characters, you're playing a 13-year-old who's pretty adept at casting spells, who's aspiring to be what's called a fate in the game, and a fate is a witch enforcer. They're the witches who hunt down renegade witches. But the game is mostly taking place in this dark military school that's training them for this. So it really contrasts the like innocence of youth of playing like 13-year-olds in this really, really dark, highly competitive, and quite violent setting. Um, so the game can run as a campaign or a one shot. Most games can. I think it really shines as a campaign because you go through all the years of the school, and we do have a supplement for it called Fates, where you actually get to play a Fate. So you could go through the entire academy and then eventually go off and, you know, actually play now Fates, hunting down other, renegade witches and whatnot.
Do you happen to have a copy of it nearby?
Fatebound is currently being printed.
Ah, okay.
Fatebound, depending on how fast it's being printed in China, so that takes forever. So depending on how fast the shipping goes, it should be out either in January or February. We're hoping January, but you know, shipping is not. It's a process.
The Fatebound artist included some backers in the art too, and maybe Scott too.
Yes. So part of the crowdfunder was if you brought the highest tier, you could be pictured as a student in the book.
Oh,
So we have, I think it was 12 backers who are actually pictured in the book, and then the artist snuck me in too. Also in the book. So uh,
What are the rules like? Does it also use cards?
it uses cards, but it uses a tarot system. It is more heavier than Once Upon an Effing Time because you draw instead of rolling dice, you do a three-card draw, and depending on what you get, and your attributes, of course, and skills, which are called rolls in the game, you'll have a success threshold. If you draw a minor arcana at or below the threshold, that's one success. If you draw a major arcana, that's one success. If you draw your aspect, that's one success. And then that's how you determine, and difficulties based on the number of successes you need. Where I think Fatebound gets really fun is as players, when they're doing their draws to see whether they were successful or not, draw a major arcana, they could start narrating things into the story. And it really becomes a collaborative experience. So, like if you draw a major arcana in the first slot, you could narrate something directly into the background of the scene. If it's in the second slot, you could narrate something that's a result of the action you were doing. And if it's in the third slot, the storyteller is going to narrate something against you.
Do you have to know tarot?
Not even a little bit. So we make it really, really simple. Besides giving a cheat sheet in the book for what the major arcana mean, you could narrate off of the name of the card, the picture of the card, or if you happen to know the meaning, the meaning. So we have people who sit down to play Fatebound with no knowledge of the tarot, and they are usually up and going by like the third. By the third draw, people are usually like, "Oh, I got this." They're like, "Bam, bam, bam." They're narrating, and by the time they get a little further in, like people hit like 8 or 9 draws, they start really getting into the narrative.
At
Oh,
most.
easily, easy, yeah, yeah. And some of us just have them on our bodies. So,
I one of my
mhm.
you get companies sometimes that make a deck of cards that is specific for their game, and the
Mhm.
result is that as soon as you lose one card, the whole game becomes totally useless.
Well, but here's one of the big things about tarot that a lot of, especially newer people, don't get is you want to get a deck that vibes with you. So that's what I always encourage people to do anyway. You want the deck that like kind of. There are so many tarot decks on the market, but they're all the same 78 cards, like numerically.
Mm-hmm.
It's the pictures that are different. So you're kind of looking for the deck where the pictures vibe with you.
So I need a goat tarot then.
Absolutely, and they have them, by the way. I've
I mean,
seen
I'm
them.
not really surprised.
I've seen a couple of Goat tarot decks, so yeah. And we carry over 250 tarot decks on our website. So
Um,
we,
so for it seems like a lot of the games that you guys make are these card based games.
mhm.
Is there like a point in which you kind of discovered those, or was this something that you sort of naturally progressed into?
Well, I am a huge mechanics nerd. Like I could totally geek out over game. That's also why I like Ten Candles. I love the mechanics and the candles. So I could really, really like geek out over like mechanics. So when I'm coming up with that stuff now, I really try to say, how do I come up with a mechanic system that fits the game? So like for Once Upon an Effing Time, I want to emulate a kid's card game. So I went with like the matching system. Whereas Tarot, which is my first game that uses tarot, it's a paranormal horror game. I just thought tarot and paranormal just fit naturally. Um, so yeah, it just kind of happens organically. I mean, we do have a couple of games that do use dice. I just try to really fit the mechanics to the actual feel of the game, what you're trying to do, the genre, so to speak.
Mhm.
So I spend a lot of time with that. But again, I totally geek out over mechanics in games. that aren't mine. So
Have you gotten into any of the other, card-based games out there? For the Queen is probably the one that comes
yeah,
to mind easiest.
yeah, yeah. For the Queen is a good example. I'm trying to think of some of. There's so many of them at this point.
Right. We had a bit of
Um,
explosion over the last few years.
yeah. There's there's playing card games, there's tarot card games, there's other types. There's just a lot out there, and I like playing with, like, messing around with. I spent 2 weeks basically wasting my time because I came to the conclusion there was no real way to do it, trying to make a mechanic based around a Ouija board. And eventually I just had I almost had a nervous breakdown in the process, but I was like, I need to do this.
Um, how do you guys, or do you, I guess is a better question, facilitate the online aspect of it? Because it's like something like For the Queen.
Mhm,
For the Queen is probably in my top five favorite games.
mhm,
I had some incredible experiences with it. This was all pre-COVID,
mhm.
before my original gaming group kind of fell apart because of the pandemic. And so when I, run games these days, it's almost exclusively on Discord, with no VTT, but that's more of a personal choice. So
Mhm.
do you guys, as like a company, do anything to kind of push that out, or is there anything to facilitate that to make it a little easier beyond just kind of assuming that there
Well,
are
we stream these games, so we either encourage people to use their own tarot decks, but we also offer online resources like online tarot decks and whatnot to use. So it's usually not an issue
Okay,
because it's Asia actually designed an online tarot deck, but there are also other ones online, so it's not that hard to get as a resource online.
gotcha. Yeah, because I know
So
it's like we've been talking a lot about 10 Candles. 10 Candles is like so critically focused around literal physical candles that you
mhm.
can emulate that online, but it's not the same experience.
I would, if somebody said we were playing 10 Candles online, I would look at them like they had four heads and say no, thank you.
Yeah. I've heard that somebody made a really good version on Tabletop Simulator.
Oh,
I've not.
really?
Yeah, I don't know how it works. I've not played it. I've heard good things about it, so I don't know if that's worth checking out. But like, it would be very interesting to see how it actually works and if it's worth it.
Yeah, I think you lose too much that way because
Yeah.
you lose the whole playing in total dark. I don't know. This is so. This is what I got to about the players narrating in, or the storyteller narrating in if it's in the opposition deck. So, like, you pick the card, and based off of either the name of the card, the picture of the card, or the actual card meaning, you're going to narrate something in based off of that card. So one of the easiest examples I use because it's just so mundane, it's simple, is breaking down a door, right? So one of the major arcana is strength, right? So let's say you're about to break down a door and you do your draw and you draw strength in the first slot, which is the background slot. It means you could narrate something directly into the background. Well, I'm trying to break down a door. Strength. What's something that's strength that I could use to break down the door? I narrate that, hey, just as I'm about to break down the door, I notice there's a fire axe on the wall. Really, really simple, and a very simple example, but that's kind of the gist of the narration. Where if you move it over to the action card, now you can't narrate something directly into the background, but you can narrate something based off of your action. So what you would say there is, I hit the door so hard, like the wall vibrated and a picture fell off the wall and something's behind the picture. And then if it's in the last slot, the storyteller could go, well, you drew strength in the opposition, so just as you hit the door, you actually realize that it's a steel reinforced door, so the difficulty is
Ouch.
higher.
Ouch.
Yes. And then that's a very mundane example, especially when you start adding like magic into it and stuff. You could imagine how players start getting really, really creative, and how the storyteller could get really, really creative, and it really becomes very collaborative.
So Peach Sequence says they are definitely showing up at the table with Fatebound and Once Upon an Effing Time.
Well,
If somebody was going to start running one game, well, you said one of them isn't out yet, but if somebody wanted to start running Once Upon an Effing Time, how much are they looking at getting set back?
Well, if you buy it this week, it's on sale. We're having a post-Halloween sale on our website. So all the games are 20% off and tarot decks are 30% off. I think that's what it is. But they're on sale. So if you want to buy the PDF of Once Upon an Effing Time, it's $7.50 this week. Normally it's 15. And if you want to buy the game itself, the game is normally 35, and I think it comes out to 26 or 27 this week on sale.
That's a pretty hefty discount.
Yeah. We're very into Halloween, and we didn't really want to let it go, and we were trying to figure out how do we cling on to it. So we came up with this sale.
And you come on this stream.
Yep. So.
Stretch out the spooky season as long as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that already, like, I took my dogs for a walk earlier, and like all the Halloween decorations are already gone, and I'm like, really? It's been like 2 days.
The eclectic goat running headfirst into a steel door. Happy headbutting. Happy headbutting tends to be my sign off in case
Oh.
in case I got missed. Okay, other questions or other things we should know. Boo, more spooky. Yeah, how come like Christmas gets to roll over into like three months and Halloween doesn't?
Oh, it's getting longer and longer too, Christmas. It's like, oh my, like, I think people just don't want to bother taking down all those lights is the only reason. Because it's like, now it's like February and those lights are still there.
I don't know, it's the starting when there are still 2 holidays to go that bugs me.
Yeah, well, yeah, but
I prefer Thanksgiving to Christmas any day because I like to eat. And it's very irritating to have Christmas sticking its nose in.
um, I actually kind of like Christmas because I have a granddaughter. So it's kind of, she's still young enough where like that whole thing is just like, ah. So.
Oh, I like it. Christmas is always so complicated. There's always like so many places to go and people that want to see you and
No, I agree with that.
Umpteen million meals, and by the time I'm done, I'm just tired.
I'm kind of viewing it now very strictly through my granddaughter's eyes, so I could kind of get into it more. So.
Yeah, the holidays are real simple on my end because I moved 3,000 miles away from my family. So I basically, my wife and I just go and hang out at her parents' place, and that's the holidays.
Hey, it's a holiday. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother
Take your
lives
beach.
in Southern California now, and so my mother goes out there for Thanksgiving, and then he comes home normally for Christmas. So
Nice.
that is like the once a year I actually get to see him now. Peach Sequence says, I don't have any questions. I just want to add that the art for Once Upon an Effing Time is really cool.
Thank you very much.
I think that was kind of a consistent
Yeah,
opinion.
people seemed really drawn to the art, well, the art and the name, I think, because they actually clock people at conventions, like walking by my booth, and I see them kind of stop and they start looking, and I kind of know what book they're looking at.
Yeah. Names, as much as everyone likes to say you can't judge a book by its cover, if you got a bad name, you're not getting any eyes on it. So.
Oh no, nothing.
Well, but that's because people are judging the book by its cover.
yeah.
It might be a great game, but
Yeah, so you know.
okay. Well, we're gonna wrap things up a little bit then. If everybody wants to go through, we'll do the clockwise thing again. Anything that's going on in particular, we'll put your links back up again, and any other streams or places you're going to be that you'd like people to check you out at.
So for folks who are maybe just hearing about liminal horror today or haven't really looked into it, maybe heard the name, if you want to learn everything that's kind of going on with liminal horror itself, come on and join our Discord. You can find links through the website. The website's real easy. It's liminalhorrorrpg.com. We got fantastic SEO, so if you Google liminal horror, you're going to find that website. which has worked out very nicely for us. But that's going to be like the central place to come kind of figure out what's going on. We have various social media and stuff like that. But if you want to talk to me directly or some of the other people on the development team, come on and join our Discord server. Um, if you want some other weird things that I've kind of worked on that aren't just liminal horror, keep your eyes peeled. There's a couple of mothership things that I'm working on that have. One of them isn't fully out yet. The other one will come to crowdfunding next year. But if you hop on the Liminal Horror Discord, you'll see me do the self-promo thing when those start coming out. But for something you can get right now, if you are a fan of story games, if you like the Carve from Brindlewood system specifically, or Trophy, or anything of that's put out by Gauntlet Publishing, there is a community-run magazine called Sprigs and Kindling that is currently put out. I think it's 5th issue. You can find things that I wrote in both the 4th issue for public access and the current issue that just released a day or two ago that's for Trophy specifically. In the Trophy one, I wrote this incursion that's called Outbreak. It's a new take on zombies, but that's kind of what it is you play characters that are caught up in the midst of a zombie outbreak that's kind of happening like right then and there, and you're trying to escape. But there's been a whole bunch of really, really fantastic writers that are part of the Gauntlet's kind of like periphery community that have come together and put together this fan project here. So come look at Outbreak for sure, but everything else in Sprigs and Kindling is fantastic. There's a really, really great team that kind of puts that together. And that's also a really good way to, it's all free to download. It's a community zine. It's meant to support play. It's meant for folks to get stuff to the table. So if you've never played any of the Carve from Brindlewood games or Trophy or anything in that kind of branch of things, you check out the zine, you like what you see, you might find a new game. So go check out that. Go check out Liminal Horror. Follow us on social media.
Okay. Scott?
Well, our Discord is very active. It's a good way to learn what's going on. Across all of our socials, we're Eerie Games Dev. Twitch is a good place to see our games being played live and kind of getting a feel for the games. And of course, we have Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. And we actually have a whole bunch of stuff that's coming out between January and February because we're filling 2 crowdfunders at once, Fatebound and the remnants of the Para Tarot deck. So that'll be coming out either in January or February, depending on shipping. We have 2 Para supplements coming out, and we have a Para Adventure coming out, as well as the Once Upon an Effing Time stuff that I mentioned. And then again, the big thing is we still have, what is it today? So we still have 5 days left in our post-Halloween sale. So if you are interested in buying, now is a good time to buy.
Get those nifty covers while you can. Did either of you have any other events or streams or anything that people can check you out at, or I can post YouTube links if you guys have those?
Once upon a time, I was the resident GM over on the Weekly Scroll running their side quest series. That took a little bit of a backseat once the Liminal Horror Deluxe Edition got into full swing. So it's been probably, it's almost been a year since I've been on there. I will return to the Weekly Scroll. I just need to have time for it, and I think that might be in the coming weeks. And you can find them, the Weekly Scroll, on YouTube and Blue Sky, I think, are the main sites. I think they got a Discord server too. Shouldn't be too difficult to find them if you're looking. But the Weekly Scroll, they do weekly game reviews for the most part. Mostly they're 2 hosts that kind of do all those things, and I'll pop in as a guest. But in particular, if you want to look at Liminal Horror, you got time for 1 session. There's an episode of Side Quests that I ran. It was a year or 2 ago at this point. I don't remember. It's called Camp Coldwater. It's going to be the scenario that's in the deluxe edition, or one of the ones that we're putting in there. The side quests episodes, we really focus on discussing the mechanics as they come up in play, alongside an actual sequence of the play itself. So go find the side quest episode on the weekly scroll. There's the link there, for their main site at least. Yeah, the Liminal Horror side quest episode is a really, really great place to start. I had a good group of players. I thought the session went really well, and that's going to give you a look at something that ends up in the big hardcover that you'll be able to get in the future.
Awesome.
We stream a lot, so we have a weekly stream of a horror video games on our Twitch. Plus, we have all of our games that we run. Two fun things that we're in the process of putting together. The first one that's much further on is a mini campaign stream being played with all horror authors. So I think that'll be fun because, hey, they're horror authors. They should really be into this. And then in March, I've been putting together a table to do a stream with other game developers where we're all going to play each other's games. And I think that'll be
nice.
a lot of fun because it'll just be all game developers who are playing. And that should be in March.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of, we all grow together.
Yeah.
I want to say that I agree with Peach Sequence. I appreciate you answering all the questions, and you were both awesome.
Hey, thanks for the invite. This was fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you had a good time. Thank you, both of you. Thank the chat. Thank all the new people. That has been absolutely wonderful. Of course, this is YouTube, so I would really appreciate it if people would hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I am making a really big push in the last couple of months to get subscribers up and watch hours. YouTube has been doing this very weird thing where it cuts almost all of my live stream hours. I did the math. I couldn't figure out why I kept losing all these hours, and then I realized what it was doing was actually cutting my live stream hours. So I will get hours for anyone who rewatches this. I won't get any hours for everyone who's watched it now. So I would really appreciate it if people subbed. Go back, find something that looks interesting, give it a listen, just to boost us up a little bit. That would be great. I am the Eclectic Goat on Facebook, here, Discord, and Twitter. Possibly new things coming next year, depending on how time works. And possibly new programs coming next year as time works. I'm not going to try out anything new with the holiday season coming up, because that just seems like a disaster. I do this every Monday. I do the random ramblings occasionally in the afternoons as time allows and other people are not streaming. Pendover says YouTube sucks. Their new AI definitely leaves something to be desired. I am still working on my Watership Down video, hashtag the book is better. I finally managed. I still have not found. The only reason it hasn't been out yet is I couldn't find my copy of the book to reread it. So I borrowed one. So I'm now in the process of about halfway through it. And once I'm done that, it should only take. This one, I have read this book so many times. This should only take me maybe a week to get the video done once I get the book reread. So. But that is pretty much. I feel like there's something else coming up that I am involved in, and I'm trying to remember what it is. There's so much going on these days. Not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after, I am on Tomby's Chinwag, which is always a great time. And if it weren't for Tomby, this channel would not even exist. So. There is that. And please take note that there have been a number of fundraisers that Eraser has been putting in the chat. Adam Gray, friend of channel, who has been on here before, is having some household issues, illness issues, and our friend Rachel needs to move because her mother can no longer safely live in their house, so they need a new house. And I, of course, am desperately trying to upgrade my computer system so that I can keep my job and do more cool stuff for you guys. So, but with that being said, once again, thank you very much for the panelists. Thank you very much to the chat for being here and for being so active. And welcome again to all of the new people. You have all been fabulous. And we're going to actually manage to get out of here on on time and a couple minutes early tonight. So everyone have a great evening and happy headbutting.
Thank you.
It's a fucking good.
Eclectic Goats got videos of indie authors and cinema love. A passion for the weird and the strange. She's snappily dressed and only slightly deranged. Come and meet the eclectic goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy head hunting, come join the herd. Shows might be a little improper. We've got real zombie, fake whizzes the otter, pizza in one hoof, glass in the other, deciding which role-playing games we will cover. Come and meet the eclectic goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the herd. Got a thing for black and white screens, crappy horror with low budget scenes. Choose on the history, spits out the lore. Time for another whiskey pour. Come and meet the eclectic goat, lover of classics and whiskey notes, disciple of horror and the written word. Happy headbutting, come join the